We came with smiles on our faces, he said. It was America. What could go wrong? Good morning. My name is, and I'm from. And today I want to talk to you about America's little secret. A secret that we often celebrate and is hidden in plain view here in this country. And we've done it here today already. I'm talking about a secret that exploits the dreams and labor of young kids from across this globe. And I'm talking about a dream that I once had when I wanted to be like Mike. When they played in the Dream Team played in the 92 Olympics. O como los niños de hoy, que quieren ser como LeBron James, or quieren ser como Stephen Curry. That same dream, the dream that in the United States, high school basketball, under the auspice of the United States Student Exchange Visitors Program, F1 student visa, it facilitates the unregulated migration and exploitation of foreign children in this country, particularly black and brown bodies from the continent of Africa and the Caribbean and Southern America. You may be asking, what is the F1 visa? Uh-oh, just hold on. You might be asking, what is the F1 visa? Well, the F1 visa You might be asking, what is the F1 visa? The F1 visa is a non-immigrant student visa for the United States. If you are an international student athlete or you work with international students on your campuses, majority of them are on an F1 student visa, which allows students to come into the United States to study at different academic programs and institutions throughout the country. But it is a non-immigrant visa and it's only for studying. However, within the context of this presentation, this visa was never intended to be used for athletic purposes from what I've seen. I kind of want to bring this in talking about black and brown bodies because you can see at the secondary level here in the United States, if you look at the chart, there are almost 50,000 international students at the secondary level here in this state. Almost 80% of them are from Asia. Eastern Asia, China, as you can see. But however, in these trends that I have noticed and have lived personally, the majority of these kids are black and brown, coming from the continent of Africa and North America, but South America, the Caribbean, and Central America. They are not representative of the face of the international student athlete in this, or the international student in this country. This system has no governance. There's no regulations. There's very weak regulations, especially when it was not created nor designed to bring kids here for athletic purposes. We have been very creative in how we have made this situation happen. So you might be asking, well, how does this happen? Well, as you saw in the video, somebody finds you. You reach out, or nowadays as a coach or recruiters reach out, and then you get an I-20 that you take to the embassy, and you are hopefully approved of a visa. But what does this mean? How does this mean it? This mostly happens in U.S. private K-12 schools. Why? Because at the high school level, which is public, you can only study for 12 months on an F1 visa. However, under the F1 visa as it stands, if you are in a private institution, you can study for as long as you have the funds to pay, which means there are kids who are coming here at the age of 14 and they're entering for however many years they're here. Also, at the public school system, all 50 states, athletic associations, have rules that do not allow F1 students to participate in athletic programs, including the University Interscholastic League of the State of Texas. However, there are no governance of private schools. They can do what they want, however they want, right? So what do? These private schools that we just talked about, these prep schools, they bring these kids. And there's no regulation. There is no regulation on housing. The U.S. doesn't mandate that they provide orientation. The U.S. doesn't mandate that they vet the host families. There's no regulation. So that's what we see. And unfortunately, the public schools aren't absolved either, right? Kind of I think when we talked about this push-pull factor. So we have public schools, well, what they do is sometimes And in one case in particular, and I'm gonna call her name out because she just was indicted, thank God, Evelyn Mack Academy out of North Carolina, where she brought in 75 kids to her school, and none of them attended her school at all. She sold them all to public schools across the United States of America for about $2,100 each child. Patterson Eastside High School in New Jersey, they were just indicted as well because they had 8 kids that just showed up out of nowhere. 6'10s from Nigeria and 6'10s from South America just showed up, and they won the state championship 2 years in a row. And somebody decided to ask a question, how was this happening? But that's not it, because also in 2015, at a private school, now going back to the private schools in Georgia, they found 30 kids sleeping in a gym, mostly from the Dominican Republic, all here in the United States because they were chasing a basketball dream and they were offered scholarships to do so, right? And as we talk about these private schools, these prep schools, these basketball-centered prep schools that we talk about now, what do? Most of these schools are not IMG. They're not Mount Verdi. They're not these big names that we know about. Anybody can start a prep school. In a lot of these cases, what they do is they're not even an academic institution. What they do, they partner with a private school that can issue an I-20, which can give an F visa for a student, and they operate as the control of the student for basketball, and they send the kid, maybe send the kid to the school for education. So that's kind of what that looks like. And the reason that this is important, and the Department of Homeland and Security, they have noticed this trend. They have made a statement in 2016 noticing how this whole process how it works and what's going on. They have noticed it, but I'm gonna challenge them today publicly. They haven't done anything. Besides provide recommendations that the children, before coming to the United States, should get on the internet and look up the school to see what it really is offering. However, they also note that when students get to the United States, that they're often whisked away to locations that were otherwise indicated on their I-20 visa. So I would say the Department of State, your recommendation is very short-sighted and has done very little to mitigate this issue. This is important. Why is it important? For us in this room, if you see something, say something. If a 6'10" kid from Nigeria shows up in your gym and you know your community doesn't produce that and y'all have been sorry for a long time, that's not normal. Ask a question. Hey, how you doing? And this is young ladies too. These are young women as well. Ask a question. Are you all right? Where you living at? Have you talked to your parents lately? Do y'all have food at home? You have your passport still? You have to work outside of school? Are you going anywhere on the weekends? Ask them that question. Because the sad thing is these kids are being socialized into silence. The perpetrators know what they're doing. And they tell these kids, if anybody finds out, you know you're going to get sent back home. You're going to get deported. And you're not going to have your dream anymore. They know what they're doing. These kids are socializing to be quiet. And it's our job to ask a question. It's not normal. If they show up out of nowhere, it's not normal. Ask how you got here. How have you gotten here? And I'm telling you all this today because I lived this personally. Over 1 year ago, a young man came to from Panama that we helped get here to the United States at a school here in the state of Texas that has since shut down. They told him he would be living in a 2-bedroom house with one other person. He got here was 8 kids living in a 1-bedroom sharing beds. That's what he told him. They told him that it didn't matter that he didn't speak English. They would give him English tutors. He had nobody to help him with any of his schoolwork. And when the coach found out that Javier Wallace, me, was no longer Latino, because I was talking to him in Spanish. But when I started talking to him in English and asking him what is going on, his whole tone changed. And unfortunately, he kicked the boy out of school. He took his scholarship. He left him with nowhere to go. He came here to Austin. Many of you in this room have met him and have interacted with this young man. But I want to tell you what happened. Because he enrolled in a public school here because public schools can accept students regardless of their migratory status. We're not allowed to ask in the state of Texas. And that's kind of how it works at the public school level for those who are engaged in this type of work, criminality. But he got here, he graduated, he received a scholarship to a junior college, and as of yesterday, he was denied his visa to re-enter to the United States for the final time at the U.S. Embassy in Panama because he went and got help while he was here, and they think that when he would come back, that he would seek asylum in this country. That's why I'm telling you this today. If you see something, say something. Thank you.
Good morning. Questions for Javier. Thank you for bringing that F1 visa topic to the discussion. Is very critical. We actually have 5 student athletes in our program that are from the Republic of Congo that have endured some questionable circumstances. So definitely speaking up about that. But in regards to the NBA specifically and their move to the NBA academies across different developing countries, have they done, or are you aware of any research that they're doing or kind of bringing awareness to the human trafficking side of that?
Thank you for the question. You bring up some very interesting points. I haven't seen anything that the NBA has published that addresses the issue of human trafficking through sport. I think the NBA at this point in time that they're achieving their goals, right? Because now, more recently, the NBA has the most international talent than it ever has had. They're at, I think this year is 108 international players in the NBA. They reached their peak 2 years ago at 112. And this compares to 1992 before the Dream Team took off when there were like really 8 players or 20, and then the next year it increased. But the NBA Beyond Borders camps that the NBA has on the continent of Africa, they have many camps in there. They're recently doing some more in America and Latin America to increase their numbers. However, I haven't seen any literature that they have published that talks about the issue of trafficking through basketball, and it's pervasive. The first round draft pick of the 2018 season was DeAndre Ayton from the Bahamas, and he is a young man. I can't say that he's been trafficked. I don't think it happened to him. I don't know. But he came through the prep school system from the Bahamas to the United States, moved on, and then went to the NBA. But I haven't seen anything the NBA has addressed about the issue.
I wanted to know how student athletes could go about advocating for athletes that we find in a trafficking situation without threatening their ability to stay in this country, and also if there's a way that we can offer resources to them without overstepping personal boundaries.
Thank you for the question. No need to be nervous at all. But a great question, right? And I think it comes back to the point of if you see something, say something. And it's difficult, right? Because you don't want to feel like you're putting that young person's career in jeopardy, but at the same time, these things that these kids are going through, we have to. Because I think when we remain silent, all we do is continue to celebrate the ones who make it. And when they make it, it kind of creates this idea that, well, you didn't work hard enough, and that's why you didn't make it. And I think once we move beyond just thinking about how much money or fame that they can get, we'll be more compelled to move and advocate for them in the way that they need to be advocated for, because in the particular case that I'm working with, this young man, you know what, we could say that I ruined his opportunity to go on to college, to have his NBA dream, because we decided to say something. We decided to remove him from that environment, which actually went against what the F1 student visa stipulated for him to do, and he became out of status. However, I feel good because he's at home. He's with his family. He didn't have to live like that anymore, and life goes on. Maybe that wasn't his path, but life goes on. He doesn't have to have that adverse child experience anymore. He might just have to find something else to do. So I think, I don't want us to think about we're ruining somebody's opportunity, but more so we're giving them an opportunity to live in the way that they need to live. And maybe the basketball or the soccer or the football, it just might not be it, but I think we don't be scared to help somebody. say something. They have anonymous hotlines. You can call the human trafficking hotline. You can give anonymous tips. They won't report your information. You can give basic information that you know. You don't have to report it to somebody who you think might report you. There are different avenues to take, but don't be hesitant to help somebody because you think you're going to ruin their opportunity. That call might save their life.